Hello everyone, welcome to another interesting and informative session of the Analyst brought to you by Vajiram and Ravi. In today's session, we'll discuss 7 important articles as featured in the Hindu and Indian Express for your comprehensive understanding of the current affair explained to you in the easiest language possible. The topics are as follow. From your analysis section in the first topic, we are going to read about the challenges which are acting as impediment for Atmanirbharta in the mineral supply chain for our country and the recent initiatives which has been joined by our country. Then, in the second topic, we'll try to learn about the violation of human rights which is taking place because of the custodial brutality and thus the immediate need for criminal justice reform. Then in the simplified section, we'll take up 5 news. We will not only try to simplify the news for you, but also provide you the much important value addition keeping in mind the approaching Mains 2025. So, stay tuned. The editorial put impetus upon the creation of certain important critical mineral clubs, which can help our country to secure and diversify the supply chain, thus to ensure that India neither becomes extractive nor become over-reliant on any major power bloc such as for example China. And thus this forms an important component of your GS3 paper under the larger theme of energy security. So to understand the crux of the issue, let's first try to have a quick overlook on India's mineral industry and our installed production capacity when it comes to important minerals. First and foremost, what are minerals? Minerals are those key natural reserves that basically act or provide raw material for the important fundamental industries of our country, ranging from energy, infrastructure, construction, machinery, etc. And thus they basically act as a kind of the backbone of Indian economy. Minerals such as for example iron ore, manganese, mica, bauxites. From your prelims perspective, you guys can actually focus upon these important mineral producing area, such as for example the important iron ore sites which we have, your Chitradurga, Shivmoga in Karnataka, your for example Durg in Chhattisgarh, your Mayurbhanj in Odisha. So keep this mineral map very dear to you from the prelims perspective. The idea is that if we look at the production of these minerals, the data which has been provided to us by the Ministry of Mines itself, it tells us that there exist such mineral producing mines and their number is 1319 in our country, of which 545 are metallic, like for example gold, silver, iron. Or for example 774 of them are non-metallic, such as for example coal and mica, etc. As per the Index of Mineral Production of Mining and Quarrying, the mineral production output has reached to 139.6 points from the base year of 2011, and in between year of 2023 to 2024 itself, it increased by almost 8%. Thus, India's mining GDP currently stands at 82,680 crore rupees, thus contributing to approximately 5 to 6% of our country's GDP, and thus providing employment to approximately 11 million people. So remember, this mineral mining industry act as the second largest employer in our country, obviously after agriculture, which basically provides employment to 46% of our current workforce. If we refer specifically to the specific minerals, what is the India's global standing? So for example, we rank second in the terms of the production of crude steel as well as aluminium, third in the production of limestone, fourth in the production of iron ore, and second producer as well as second largest consumer of coal in the world after China. Idea is, let's say for example, if you are talking specifically about the iron ore, Australia is the largest producer in the world. If it comes to aluminium, China is the largest producer of aluminium in the world. If we talk in the terms of the states in our country, Odisha is the largest producer of iron ore as well as aluminium. When it comes to limestone, Rajasthan is the largest producer. So in our country, if we talk about the share of states in the mineral production, remember there exist 7 important states. The share of states in mineral production, Odisha itself contributes to 44% of the total mineral production in our country. It is followed by Karnataka 17%, Maharashtra 14%, Chhattisgarh 13%. So remember that these 7 states listed here itself contributes to 97% of the total mineral production in our country. A question shall be arising in your mind here. what is the importance of this mineral exploration and production? The first and foremost reason is the extraction of critical minerals. The critical minerals which are required to produce equipments, machinery for Industry 4.0. Industry 4.0 which has witnessed digitalization, which is working upon internet, which is basically integrating various kind of Internet of Things technology altogether. Such as, for example, these critical minerals are key requisite for the manufacturing of the semiconductor. So at this stage, you guys can recall our last lecture where we were talking about the national semiconductor mission which our country has launched, under which we are basically creating various kind of fabrication units for the creation of semiconductor chips. The semiconductor chips on which your laptop or tab is running right now, on which you are watching this lecture. The same semiconductor chips which were basically utilized for the landing of Chandrayaan 3 on the moon, thus making our country the first country in the world to achieve that feat and overall fourth country in the world to actually land on the moon. Again, are these minerals important to achieve certain national goals which we have set for ourselves? The answer is absolutely yes. For example, at this stage you guys can recall Panch Amrit target which India took in the Glasgow summit in Conference of Parties 26. One of the objective of Panch Amrit target is that by the year of 2030, 50% of our total installed power capacity generation will actually come from renewable energy. And to achieve this feat, India has launched various initiatives, such as, for example, one which was asked in your this year prelims examination as well, Pradhan Mantri Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana, under which we are basically putting impetus on the installation of solar photovoltaic panels on the rooftops. Now, to create these solar photovoltaic panels, these minerals are key components, such as, for example, minerals like limestone, silver, aluminium, silicon. It is basically silicon which converts the sunlight into electrical energy altogether. Also, the same critical minerals are also important to ensure the security of the country. For example, look at this editorial, the essential minerals for the robust defense ecosystem. It basically highlights that how India needs to be self-sufficient in the production of these critical minerals, metals and rare earth to actually increase the indigenous defense production. Look at the picture here. How, for example, India's air defense system is actually intercepting aerial objects during a space suspected drone attack from the Pakistan side, the recent Operation Sindoor which we conducted. And to create such drones, what is required? Copper, carbon fiber, aluminium, lithium, silicon, the important minerals. Now imagine that what if for such mineral production, or let's say for example creation of such drones, if we are reliant for these minerals on any other country, and what if that country is an adversary of us altogether? For example, if we refer to the CIPRI report which was released very recently, it basically highlighted that how India spends 2.3% of its GDP on the defense sector. And currently 65% of our defense product is actually being produced indigenously. But still we are actually importing 35% of the defense product. And the defense product which we are creating in our country, the critical raw material which is required, that is something on which we are heavily import reliant. And that too on an adversary country, and the country is China. So as per the International Energy Agency, the demand for such minerals is going to further rise by the year of 2030. So what are the issues which actually surround the mineral security of our country? As per a report released in 2023 by the Ministry of Mines itself, it basically identified 30 essential critical minerals which were very important for our country's defense, energy security, growth in economy. And the same report also highlighted that how we had complete import dependency for almost 10 minerals, majority of them which is actually being procured by China. So let's take a case study of the China's unparalleled dominance when it comes to the mineral production. Currently, China is the world's largest mineral mining nation, and by the year of 2024, it has discovered 173 type of minerals. 13 of them are energy producing minerals. 59 of them are actually metallic minerals. And thus China is heavily investing in mineral exploration and production. For example, in the year of 2024 itself, it actually invested $19.4 billion for the exploration of such minerals. And the result of that has been that in the year of 2024 itself, there was 40% rise in the production of lithium, rare earth elements like germanium, gallium, etc. And the virtue of which the China controls currently 87% of the rare earth element processing, 58% of the world's lithium refining, and 68% of the silicon processing. Just look at the China's staggering number when it comes to the global processing of critical minerals in copper, nickel, aluminium, lithium, cobalt, manganese, natural graphite. And thus, when we are saying that to create, let's say for example, these drones, these aircraft carriers, missiles, all of this which we are indigenously producing, 65% of it, we are currently 50% import dependent for titanium, 76% import dependent for silicon. Now recall the Pradhan Mantri Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana, photovoltaic panels, silicon, 76% coming from China itself, and 82% for lithium. Again, one more question which shall be arising in your mind. Why? Why India is so heavily import dependent even though we have abundant mineral reserves in our country? So to understand that, we'll refer to another article in the Hindu. It basically suggests that there exist a lot of supply chain issues in our country. First and foremost is the inadequate exploration and the tapping of the reserves which we actually possess. To understand that, let's take a case study of ilmenite. Ilmenite is actually a very good source for titanium dioxide, from where the titanium can be extracted, the same titanium for which we are 50% import reliant on China. India has 11% of the global reserves of ilmenite in our country. Yet, we actually spent billions of dollars to actually import ilmenite from China itself. The question arises why? Because of the inadequate exploration and the tapping of reserve. The major reason for this is that many of such minerals, including ilmenite, is actually deep-seated minerals. And thus it basically requires high-risk investment in exploration and mining. They have long gestation period. So for example, let's say just to explore how much mineral of ilmenite we have in a particular area. First of all, it will require huge capital investment for that. Huge technology upgradation. Let's say you will explore for 2 to 3 years. Then you end up finding that this whole particular area which you were exploring, it only contains, let's say, 5 to 10% of the ilmenite resources. So it is not profitable for you to do mining here altogether. That basically implies what? That all the investment which you did for 2 to 3 years, that is completely gone into waste. And thus this high risk investment and exploration and mining, it itself act as a kind of a deterrent for the private sector to actually enter into this field. And even if they want to enter, there is lack of incentive which is actually given by the government. Now to understand this provision, let's take another case study, that is the discovery of 5.9 million tons of lithium deposit, which we basically found in the Riasi district of Jammu and Kashmir. Look at the villagers showing here lithium stones to all of you. So when this particular discovery was made, the policy makers, they become very enthusiastic. They were like, okay, now we have found lithium in our country. We will no longer will be able to kind of, import reliant on China. Thus, they basically amended the Mines and Mineral Regulation and Development Act 1957 and allowed for private sectors to actually kind of explore 24 critical minerals including lithium. But even after that, these sites have actually very less bidders. Why? First and foremost is the lack of adequate data, which is provided by the Geological Survey of India or the Ministry of Mines to these private sector players, that how many potential reserves actually lies in a particular area. Then there exist various kind of technological hurdles. So for example, these lithium deposits which we have found in Riasi district in Jammu and Kashmir, they have been basically found along with clay deposit. And to do the mineral exploration in the clay deposit, the technology which is required, it remains highly untested even globally. So obviously private sector is not willing to actually invest in this particular sector. and thus there exists heavy reliance on the public sector units. So, to kind of reduce our import dependency on China and to kind of boost the mineral exploration and production in our country, the government has taken several steps. Before that, just try to test your knowledge. Now try to solve this prelims question by the simple discussion which we had till now. Idea is that what are the steps which the government has taken? First and foremost, 3 public sector units have come together to kind of create Kabil initiative, under which we are basically trying to secure overseas mineral assets. For example, recently India and Argentina, they basically signed a joint agreement that we are going to basically explore lithium blocks in the lithium triangle country which exists in the South America, where it is considered that they have very high lithium reserves. The lithium triangle countries which basically consist of Chile, Argentina and Bolivia. Look here how the Coal India is exploring lithium assets in Argentina with a US firm. Correct? So the idea is that we are co-investing in a lithium resource project in South America and a rare earth deposit in Africa to diversify our critical mineral supply chain. The Geological Survey of India and the Center for Scientific and Industrial Research has come up with the promotion of circular economy, another concept which was asked in this year prelims examination, to actually kind of reduce our dependency on the mineral imports. Third, the production linked incentive scheme has now been provided for the extraction of critical minerals as well. 100% foreign direct investment under automatic route is now allowed in this particular section. And then the government specifically launched the National Critical Mineral Mission 2024, under which we are basically trying for the fast track regulatory approval process. Financial incentives will now be provided to the private companies. Let's say for example you are a private company and you are saying that okay, I agree to explore the lithium reserves in the Riyasi district. Then the government is going to provide you certain financial incentives. You can also acquire critical mineral assets abroad as well now, to actually enhance the trade with resource rich countries like for example Argentina. Then the mineral processing parks the government is actually creating to kind of streamline the supply process, streamline the logistics, as well as for more technical research in this field. Like let's say for example if you want to extract the lithium reserves from the clay deposit, there is a lot of scientific research which is required for that, and for that purpose the government is creating Center for Excellence on Critical Minerals. Also, the government has launched Mines and Minerals Act 2023, where now the private sectors are actually allowed to actually kind of explore 6 out of 12 atomic minerals as well. At the prospective stage exploration, the private players are now allowed to do drilling, as well as subsurface excavation is now allowed. Then there is a specific National Mineral Exploration Trust which has been created to actually fund from grade 1 to grade 4 exploration. Let's say for example, now if I want to explore a large area of 1000 km² in the Riyasi district, I will not be allowed to procure different licenses from different ministries. Rather, there will be a single licensing process. And the mine owners are also now allowed to sell 50% of the annual mineral, including coal, in the open market. Thus, we are also providing them profit incentives as well. Look here. Such 6 critical minerals which now the private companies can also explore include your lithium, titanium, tantalum, beryllium, etc. The revenue from the auction will continue to accrue to the state governments. So the state governments will also take equal participation in this, and this will act as a kind of an epitome of center-state coordination. So in this particular context, now let's try to decode the editorial today. The editorial suggests that how there are various challenges which are faced by the Indian companies. First of all, they lack advanced extraction technology. Remember the example of lithium in Riyasi district, and financial capital. So does this act as a kind of an impediment because of which the Indian companies are unable to actually compete in the foreign market? And let's say even if we have kind of procured certain exploration sites, let's say for example in Argentina, if over the course of the years we come to this conclusion that this site doesn't have the potential reserves, then these sites become nothing but the stranded assets. Also, the article emphasized that how there is rise of trade protectionism recently, which can be seen from the tariff policy of Trump. So the idea is that many of the countries, including USA and European countries, they are now basically following the nation first or prioritizing their nation's interests first. Thus, if any kind of grouping which India has joined to actually to extract the benefit of kind of the preservation or the procurement of the various mineral reserves, then it might not be that much beneficial for our country, because the countries will try to protect the critical mineral reserves which they have. Thus, the article suggests that how the recent critical mineral initiative which has been launched by the Quad countries, which basically include your Australia, Japan, USA and India, that can be act as a kind of a change maker, where we can actually utilize such initiatives to secure and diversify our supply chain. And it suggests that how India should indulge further in the mineral diplomacy to sign agreement with resource-rich countries like, for example, Argentina and Zambia, even on the bilateral basis. At this stage, it also highlights that how even though India has become the part of the Mineral Security Partnership, which was basically a US-led initiative, including 14 countries, including our country as well. Another question basically in this year prelims examination. So you guys can see that how the mineral sector has become very important for the UPSC altogether. The idea is that even though we joined it, it has and the whole idea was what? To kind of reduce the dependency on the China for all the critical minerals. It has not kind of given us the result which we were expecting at that point of time. Thus, there shall be a specific structure for co-financing and strategic project selection which shall be included in the Mineral Security Partnership, and India should also utilize its historical ties with Africa and Southeast Asia to create further such structure of co-financing and joint projects in these regions as well. In this context, we will also refer to another article towards the end, so you guys will be able to form the interlinkages. Now, just try to solve this particular question. If possible, comment your answer in the comment box and we move forward to the next news, where the editorial highlights the violation of human rights due to custodial death and the rising number of under trial prisoners who are awaiting for justice in our country, which forms an important component of your GS2 paper under the larger theme of government policies and intervention. The issue has come to the forefront because of the custodial death of Ajit Kumar, a 27-year-old person who was obviously the part of the demographic dividend of our country, who was acting as a temple guard in Shiv Ganga in Tamil Nadu. And he succumbed to the custodial death, where his last words to his mother were haunting but true, that "Mother, I did not steal." Just look at the headlines, that how the autopsy of the Ajit Kumar has actually revealed 44 external injuries which he was basically succumbed to during the custody, the police custody. And it reveals several abrasions and contusions which were caused by thrashing and kicking. And thus Madras High Court has confirmed Ajit Kumar's custodial death and has also raised multiple red flags about the police handling of the case. So in this context, let's try to understand what amounts to custodial death. It is basically a death which is occurred while person is in the custody of the law enforcement official or in jail. Again, as per the 78th Law Commission report, any such crime which is actually committed by the public servant against such arrested person like Ajit Kumar actually amounts to custodial violence. Now you might be wondering that what can be the reason of such heinous crime which was actually committed by the police, who are actually have kind of given the responsibility to protect the citizens of the country. To understand that, let's first try to understand the provisions of Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita 2023. So there is a particular section called as section 58 of BNSS 2023, according to which, let's say for example, there is a police officer and that police officer has detained or arrested Ajit Kumar, and now he is trying to basically investigate or take out some important evidence. But even if within 24 hours the investigation remains incomplete and now it has become longer than 24 hours, then under section 127 of BNSS 2023, the officer which is in the charge of the police station, not below the rank of sub-inspector, has a responsibility now, that he or she shall transmit the accused to the nearest magistrate. And then under section 187 of the BNSS 2023, the magistrate has certain power. One of them is that the magistrate can actually provide for the extension of the police custody, which shall not exceed in any way more than 15 days in total. But there is a loophole. The loophole is that the magistrate can also provide this police custody in parts in the first 90 days. So let's say, for example, Ajit Kumar can be held for the first 5 days of the police custody. Then he can be released on the bail. Then again he can be called after 1 month for another 10 days. But yes, it shall be less than 15 days in the total. So what are the troubling provisions under the BNSS 2023? The first is, if accused is facing multiple charges, then such provision of bail can be completely denied. Again, in contrary to the CRPC 1973, now the investigation officer is not required to provide any reason that why he or she is seeking police custody from judicial custody. Then even though handcuffing was actually held as a derogatory practice, inhumane and repugnant by the Supreme Court to the idea of Article 21 of the Constitution, the BNSS 2023 actually provides for handcuff during the arrest as well. Now let's say, for example, if the investigation remains incomplete and now the accused is lodged in the jail and now is actually waiting for the trial to take place and has become thus a kind of an under trial prisoner. An under trial prisoner whose crime has yet not been established by the court or the judgment has been given by the court. Then the BNSS section 497 says that such under trial prisoner can be released only if the person has served half of the maximum sentence. Now, Ajit Kumar was kept in police custody by the magistrate, and this is where this particular heinous crime has actually been committed. The idea is, what are the determinants of such custodial violence? The first and foremost reason which has been highlighted in today's editorial is the normalization of force over nudging. And this basically stems from nothing but the simple fact, like for example, how you guys have seen the kind of dominant parenting, where the parents basically think that it is easier for them to actually beat the children to make them study. The whole concept of study has been lost there itself. The second is that this also takes place because of absence of any strong legislation. So keep this in your mind that in our country there exists no anti-torture legislation. At the same time, this custodial violence which is committed by the policemen is not criminalized in our country at all. So there is no legal deterrent on the policemen, and that's why they are actually using this force. Why to waste time in nudging of the accused? At the same time, this is where our country has actually turned blind eye towards international provisions. So for example, India has signed the UN Convention Against the Torture in the year of 1996 but has not ratified it yet. Then there exist various kind of policy loopholes. For example, the today's editorial highlights that how the Tamil Nadu government is actually spending crores of money in the policing, but very less fraction of that actually goes in the training and the psychological care of the policemen. Then there also exist various kind of infrastructural challenges, such as for example, the provisions of Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita actually provides for a pre-medical checkup of any accused to actually determine that is there any kind of pre-existing medical condition of the particular accused. So that's how the accused shall be treated. But it is obvious the kind of the shortage of doctor which we have in our country or the forensic teams which we have in our country. So do you think that such checkups will be being provided by the policemen to the accused? The idea is that because of all of these issues, they augment and actually leads to almost 175 deaths or such custodial deaths which occurred in the year of 2022 as per the data provided to us by the Ministry of Home Affairs itself. The highest of them in the last 5 years, almost 80 such custodial deaths actually occurred in the state of Gujarat, followed by Maharashtra and then Uttar Pradesh. So the idea is that at the very same time, let's say for example, if there is such kind of laxidal investigation which has been committed by the police officer, it will actually lead to not having any kind of concrete evidences against the accused, and that leads to another problem, and that is under trial prisoners in our country. Many of the times, these victims of, let's say for example, police custodial death or these under trial prisoners, they actually come from poor socio-economic backgrounds and marginalized communities. For that, let's look at the NCRB data published in 2022 itself. according to which in our country at that point of time there existed 5,73,220 under trial prisoners. 60% of these prisoners were actually coming from 6 states like UP, Bihar, Maharashtra, MP. And 65% of these under trial prisoners were either illiterate or they had received education till most class 10th. So you guys can actually gauge their legal literacy. How much might they will be aware about their fundamental rights of Article 21 and Article 22. So out of these total prisoners, how many of them are under trials? 4,34,000. 19% of these under trials were Muslim, 4% were Sikhs. 21% of these under trial inmates belong to scheduled caste and 10% almost belong to scheduled tribe. 14% of these under trial had actually spent more than 1 to 2 years of their life, and some of them actually spent more than 5 years just waiting in the jail, lodged in the jail. So the idea is that one major issue with this, the kind of the inhuman treatment which is being provided to these people in the police custody or if they are lodged in the jail, is also the lack of prison reform. The idea was actually first propounded in Macaulay's Minute of 1835. Then, years after that, a kind of a prison discipline committee was created. They met on chai and samosa. They discussed that does this any kind of humanitarian provision shall be provided to these prisoners, shall be provided to these people who are in police custody. The cumulative answer was no, nahi. Then ultimately jail management committee was created in 1864. Then it was decided that okay, let's provide them at least bedding and medical care. Ultimately, even till today, remember that this prison reforms or this concept of prison fall under the state subject, and they are basically modeled or regulated upon the Prison Act of 1894. And there were certain recommendations which were actually implemented to kind of provide reform and rehabilitation to offenders under the provision of Indian Jail Committee 1990. Many of the human rights violations which are taking place, the major reason for that is the low capacity of the judicial system altogether. Just look at the data which was provided to us by the Law Ministry itself in the month of November 2024, according to which the vacancy which existed in the high courts. 49% in Allahabad, 27% in Bombay, 38% in Punjab and Haryana. And this empty chambers of the judges, which basically leads to what? The high number of pending cases. For example, if you look at the pending court cases for more than 3+ years in India, that amounts to 66% of the cases in Bihar itself, 47% in Uttar Pradesh, almost 53% in Odisha. So basically, these people who are accused of such crime and they are basically under police custody, or if they have been lodged in the jails, or if they are in judicial custody, they are basically facing one thing, and that is Tariq pe Tariq and Tariq pe Tariq. And if you guys can recall, any justice delayed is nothing but justice denied. Thus, what are the provisions which are available to these people who are in custody? First and foremost is the Article 21 of the Constitution, which provides for right to dignified life, and the expansion of that is also shall be provided any kind of protection against the torture. So that has also been held by the Supreme Court as a fundamental right. Then Article 22 provides for protection against arbitrary arrest and detention by the policeman, and it also provides for right to counsel for them. Then under the Prem Shankar Shukla versus Delhi administration, the Supreme Court held that even the handcuffing, as minute as that, forget about thrashing and all of that, even handcuffing shall be done under the last resort by the police. Then in your Sunil Batra versus Delhi administration, the Supreme Court specifically laid down that there shall not be any case of personal violence which shall be committed by these policemen against any accused person. And they were completely prohibited from the use of iron rods. For this purpose, we also have International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights 1966, which basically ensures that there shall be a kind of a human and respectful treatment which shall be provided to the accused of the crime as well. This particular cartoon has been taken from the reports itself. The today's editorial basically provides for some innovative kind of way forwards which can be taken. The first is to direct at least 5% of the police budget in each and every state toward district level mental health units. Then there shall be mandatory quarterly counseling and sensitization courses for these policemen, because obviously they are dealing, let's say for example, with the rape cases, theft cases. So they are also dealing with so much of issues that many of the time it actually becomes very normal for them to react in certain way, to react in violent ways. That becomes a very norm for them. So thus there is a kind of a sensitization course which is required. It also basically put impetus on institutionalization of mental health within the law enforcement, and how the police training shall actually now include the need of the modern day society, where basically the principles of ethics, human rights jurisprudence, all of that shall be included in police training. And then the criminal justice system shall also be reformed to actually ensure the accountability of these policemen. The custodial death shall be criminalized, the custodial violence shall be criminalized. And ultimately we can use technology in this regard. So let's say for example, at least the basic which we can do is the installation of CCTV camera. If that would have installed in this particular case, at least we would have solid evidence of the crime which was committed against Ajit Kumar by these policemen. So we can use technology here as well, right? So remember all of these innovative suggestions, try to solve this particular question, and we move forward to the next news, where we are going to read about a very important component of India's banking sector, and that is non-banking financial companies, which has been in the news because of the target which has been given by our finance minister, where she has said that how these NBFCs shall aim to more than double their credit disbursements to reach at least 50% of the total volume released by the scheduled commercial banks. The idea is to achieve the goal of Viksit Bharat by 2047 and become a $30 trillion economy. Currently, these NBFCs account for 24% volume of the credit disbursed by scheduled commercial banks, and the aim which has been set for them is to reach 50% of the total volume, where the finance minister has suggested that these NBFCs shall direct lending towards high growth and high impact sectors. So in this context, let's try to understand what is a non-banking financial company. It is basically a financial company which is registered under the Companies Act of 1956, and they shall have a minimum net owned fund of rupees 2 crore. So again, is it a bank? No. The banks are basically registered under the second schedule of the RBI Act of 1934, and these NBFCs are registered under the Companies Act of 1956. However, these NBFCs shall follow all the guidelines under the Chapter 3B of the RBI Act 1934, and thus they fall under the direct control of Reserve Bank of India. So what these NBFCs can do and they cannot do. They can provide loans and advances. They can acquire share, stocks, bonds, even government securities. They can also provide insurance, for example, look here, the Life and Insurance Corporation of India. At the same time, they can also indulge in chit business. What is chit business? Where a lot of people, they basically come together, they form a kind of a corpus of pooling of fund, and then this fund is basically invested in, let's say for example, some stock, and whatever the dividend which comes from that stock is equally shared among the people. That is basically a kind of a chit business. It does not include agricultural activities. Many of the people get confused here. See, the idea is that, let's say for example, you are a farmer and you go to a non-banking financial company and you ask for a loan. Can NBFC give loan to this farmer? The answer is yes. Now let's say that you, as a farmer, you open a sugar mill, a company, and that is registered under the Companies Act 1956. And then you have also acquired a minimum net owned fund of 2 crore rupees now. And thus now you want to become a non-banking financial company. Can you do that? The answer is no. Why? Because you are involved in agricultural activities as a company. Then you shall not be involved in any kind of industrial activity or purchase or sale of goods or sale or purchase of any immovable property. So let's say for example, if you are indulging in any kind of rental business. Thus, what these NBFCs can do and cannot do. Can they accept demand deposit? To understand this, let's say for example, on some occasion you went to your Masi's place. The Masi looked at you, the poor situation of you, obviously as a UPSC aspirant. The Masi's eyes filled with tears. So she basically gave you 5,000 rupees. You basically decided that, okay, I'm going to save this 5,000 rupees for future uses, future purposes. Let's say, for example, buying a test series. But then the call of your loved one come. She basically says that let's say go for some movie or something. Now the idea is that if you're going to watch a movie, obviously we'll eat popcorn as well. There exists 18% of GST on popcorn itself. So now you go back to the bank where you had deposited this 5,000 rupees to withdraw it. That is basically called as demand deposit, the money which you can withdraw from the banking services on demand. But let's say if you have committed a mistake that you actually kind of gave this 5,000 rupees to a non-banking financial company, then this NBFC cannot provide you such demand deposit. They only provide time deposit. So this 5,000 rupee which you have kept with NBFC, you can only take it out minimum after 1 year and maximum after 5 years. Thus, they do provide any kind of saving or current account? The answer is no. At the same time, remember that they do not form the part of payment and settlement system as well. So let's say, for example, if I'm working for a company A and that company provides me check as a salary, and this check has been issued by HDFC Bank, but my account is in SBI Bank. So I go to SBI that please give me my salary. The SBI will provide me that. And because this HDFC and SBI has kind of established a cross-linkage banking system, thus they will settle the amount among themselves. Can NBFC issue such check on themselves? The answer is no. And remember that there is no such deposit insurance facility which is provided by Deposit Insurance Credit Guarantee Corporation, which is actually a subsidiary body of Reserve Bank of India. It does not provide any deposit insurance facility to NBFCs. Then what are systematically important NBFCs as per RBI? These are those NBFCs whose asset size has become more than 500 crore rupees as per the last audited balance sheet. The rationale for such classification is that now their activities has become kind of a bearing on the financial stability of the overall economy altogether. So what are the challenges which are being faced by these NBFCs? First and foremost is the interdependency risk which prevails in the NBFC sector. To understand that, let's take an example. Let's say that you are a very big bank. You have two options. One, you can actually lend to a very big NBFC, or you have option to actually lend to very small NBFCs, multiple of them. And these small NBFCs are basically providing loans, let's say, to agricultural farmers. So obviously as a bank you are a profit making entity, because all the loans which you are giving, that is nothing but your assets. So obviously you will choose to actually give a large amount of loan to a big NBFC from where you can actually get high interest. The idea is that what these big NBFCs are doing, that they have started lending to these small NBFCs. Now let's say in this particular year, in this cropping period, there is bad harvest because of El Nino has taken place. So these small NBFCs, they are unable to pay back to this large NBFC. Why? Because they had given the loan to the farmers. Farmers are unable to return back this loan to this small NBFC. A small NBFC is unable to pay the loan to the large NBFC. And thus this large NBFC starts acting as a kind of a non-performing asset, and this whole cycle creates a cascading effect on the money and supply altogether. Look here, the GNPA ratio among the NBFCs, how it has kind of significantly risen in the last few years. Then what starts happening, that let's say for example, the government, let's say the RBI, it starts taking contractionary monetary policy. Why? Because there is high prevailing inflation in the market. So RBI says that okay, the CRR, cash reserve ratio, and SLR, now both of them are going to be increased. So for this large bank, the lending is actually now going to become expensive. And for this large NBFC, the borrowing is actually going to be kind of expensive. So what these large NBFCs are doing, that to kind of increase their profit maximization, they have started indulging in various kind of risk assets, such as for example started investing in the loans and the stocks altogether. Thus there has taken place a asset liability mismatch altogether. At the same time, remember that when the banks are giving these loans to these NBFCs, they are giving it on the short term, 1 year, 2 year. But any such money which has been kept in NBFC, if anyone is depositing money in NBFC, it is being kept for a very long time period, time deposit. So that basically act as what? Kind of an asset liability mismatch. And that exactly what happened with the failure of DFHL. Look at the capital risk weighted ratio, how it has significantly declined over the last few years as well. Then there is rise of such illicit lending apps and fintech impact has taken place. Thus, the RBI recently has taken significant steps to actually kind of provide flow of money to these NBFCs. The idea is that bank lending, specifically by the NBFC, declined by 6.7% in 2024, which was 4-year low. Thus, RBI did what? It basically slashed the risk weight of the bank loans to NBFC by 25%. What does this risk weight of the bank means? A lower risk weight on loans means that now the lenders will need to set aside less capital against those loans, thus resulting in lower interest rate for the borrowers. So more people will buy from the NBFC. Their lending capacity will increase as well. As well as the existing risk weight as per the external rating of NBFC has also now been kept below the 100%. And it has basically directed them to comply with the Income Tax Act 1961 rules. Maximum only 20,000 rupees now can be given, loans can be given in the cash actually. And RBI has also ensured several transparent and accessible auction process. So remember NBFC's introduction, the issues which it is facing, the recent step which has taken. In the conclusion, you guys can write basically the aim which has been set for NBFCs by our finance minister. We move forward to the next news, where we are going to talk about specifically the context of India-Namibia relations, as well as the larger issue of India becoming the voice of Global South and the interest which we have in the region of Africa, as highlighted by our Prime Minister himself. So continuing his diplomacy, which is focused on the Global South, our Honorable Prime Minister highlighted that how India's support to Namibia's decolonization was not just in words but in action. So now just have a quick look at India's role in decolonization. It was India back in the year of 1946 itself, where we raised the question for the independence of Namibia in United Nations. In 1986, the first assembly of Southwest African political organization was actually created in New Delhi by the founding father of Namibia, called as Sam Nujoma. Under our non-aligned movement, one of the major pillars was what? Decolonization of the countries. Thus, we basically provided material assistance as well as military training to Namibia's freedom fighter against the apartheid inflicted South Africa at that point of time. Thus, the founding father of Namibia, Sam Nujoma, had said in his biography that in our national liberation movement, India indeed played a pivotal role. Ultimately, Namibia gained independence in 1990, and by the year of 1994, they had established full-fledged resident mission in our country. Then, Prime Minister also congratulated now the African nation for adopting India's UPI digital payment system. Can anybody comment in the comment box with how many countries this UPI system has now been started by our country? And it also emphasized that we do not only aspire to compete with anyone in the African continent, rather seek to build together. Namibia in return provided the highest civilian order to our Prime Minister. And this basically constitutes 27th international honor bestowed on our Prime Minister. Our Prime Minister visit to Namibia was basically the third ever Prime Ministerial visit. Almost the last one was in the year of 1998 by Atal Bihari Vajpayee. And in this particular visit, our Prime Minister has showcased that how India has become the voice of Global South by touring countries like Ghana, Trinidad, Argentina, Brazil and Namibia in the context of the BRICS summit which he attended. So what is the importance of Namibia for India? First and foremost, it is a very resource-rich country. It is the third largest uranium producer in the world and one of the largest producer of the critical minerals which we are discussing, lithium, zinc, rare earth metals. It also acts as a source for Indian product, thus kind of expanding the idea of make in India to make for the world. For example, the total trade which we had with Namibia, it existed at $654 million in 2023, of which the export was $418 million. Thus, we have a positive balance of trade and balance of payment with Namibia. It also acts as a very important investment destination for us. Approximately $800 million investment has been done specifically in zinc and diamond processing. Then the flagship initiative of Ministry of External Affairs for capacity building, that is Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation, has been opened in Namibia as well as the India wing in the Ongwedia campus. Also, India provided more than 19,000 vaccines to Namibia under the Vaccine Matri initiative, and Namibia in return also assisted our Project Cheetah. But when it comes to the Namibia's import partner, India's share is only 2.3%. Just look at China's share, almost double to us, 4.4%. Namibia 19%, South Africa 36%. Thus, Namibia is also important because to counter the China's posturing in Africa, where China has emerged as the largest bilateral trading partner in Africa, and its trade volume is almost surpassing $200 billion. It is also kind of expanding the infrastructure investments in region of Africa under its Belt and Road Initiative and Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. And the African Studies Research, a kind of a think tank, has also kind of highlighted that how China is basically indulging in debt trap diplomacy even in Namibia, where, for example, two of Namibia's most productive radioactive element mines are actually owned by Chinese companies. Then what has been the response by India then? So as per the Ministry of External Affairs, India has become the 10th largest FDI source for Africa. 206 infrastructure projects in 46 countries and approximately $76 billion of investment has been made in Africa since the year of 1996. It was under the India's leadership of G20 when African Union became a permanent member. And then we have also kind of enhanced the military exercises with the African region. Why? To counter the China's string of pearl policy, where it is basically creating trading ports and defense ports to kind of circle India in the Indo-Pacific region. There is also a response of India. That is also kind of a term in international relations. Can anybody name what is India's policy to counter a string of pearl? And to that, we have strengthened our military relations with Africa under the AF Index as well as the Sagar initiative, right? Basically supporting and growth for all in the region. So remember this particular news, you can use this in your international relations answers as well, and we move forward to the next news, where we are going to learn about a very interesting concept which today has appeared, and this is going to be one of the very key value addition in your GS3 answer, because the question will come on disaster management for sure, and I hope that you guys will inculcate this in your answer. What is the news? The news says that while life insurance is ubiquitous term in India, disaster risk insurance is not. So there exists low penetration of disaster risk insurance for individual property and livelihood, which actually leaves much of the population exposed to the irretrievable damage and loss. So there was a new concept which started emerging specifically in USA called as catastrophe bonds or CAT bonds, specifically in the context of hurricanes in the late 1990s. Does India also is in the requirement of any such catastrophe or CAT bonds? The answer is yes. Why? Look at this down to earth report here. In 2024, India experienced extreme weather events. Extreme weather events like, for example, landslide, tropical cyclone, heat waves. All of that on 322 days, surpassing the records for previous year. Because of which, if we talk about the human life which was lost, as well as the capital lost which we incur. So there were death of 3,472 people, the recorded death. And 6% of our total GDP was actually lost to this extreme weather event which was taking place, which also impacted 4 million hectare plus cropland. Thus basically kind of very significantly denting our food security as well. In this context, such catastrophe bonds or CAT bonds becomes very important. How? Let's try to understand that what are they. First of all, the players which create these bonds are sovereign nations like USA, and which is being suggested for India to do so. Here, they basically sponsor the bond and pay the premium, the initial amount of the insurance. Then they require certain intermediaries to issue these bonds. Why? To reduce the counterparty risk. These intermediary to issue the bonds can be some banks, let's say for example World Bank, Asian Development Bank, insurance company. In our case, it can be LIC or a Reserve Bank of India. And these intermediaries, they issue these catastrophe bonds which are brought by several private investors. What is their interest in this? Two ways. First, let's say what if they buy this particular bond, cat bonds, and no catastrophe occurs as all, or catastrophe occurs but the total claim is less than the threshold value. Then these investors, they will basically end up with high return. They will get interest as well as principal. Or for example, if the catastrophe occurs and the total claim is now in this case is more than threshold value, then the investors will end up losing the money. However, the article itself today highlights that there exist certain disadvantages. What are they? First, a defectively designed cat bond can actually lead to no payout despite a significant disaster. For example, let's say there was an earthquake, cat bond which was designed for a magnitude threshold of 6.6. But it will fail even if let's say the velocity of that particular earthquake was 6.5 only. And even if it caused extensive damage, no payout will be provided. Thus, in addition, despite a contract, if a disaster doesn't occur, it could actually lead to questions on the desirability of such expense altogether, which is being done by the government, further denting our actually fiscal deficit. Again, comparison of premium to be paid discovered through transparent government procedure with historical annual cost of post-disaster reconstruction. That is something which can be way forward, and you guys can use this in your kind of the way forward or in kind of your conclusion in the answers as well. And we move forward to the next news, where we are going to learn about a very interesting concept of Gini coefficient. Why it has been in the news? Because very recently the government claimed that India is not only the world's fourth largest economy, but it is also one of the most equal societies today. And the government sources basically kind of derived this data from the World Bank's latest poverty and equity brief, which said that India's Gini index was standing at 25.5, making our country the world's fourth most equal country after Slovak Republic, Slovenia and Belarus. The idea is that this Gini index or Gini coefficient is the most commonly used measure for inequality, where it measures the inequality on a scale from 0 to 1. That is basically 0% to 100%, with highest values actually indicating higher inequality. So in comparison to that, we are only at 25.5. So thus that basically implies that we have very less inequality. What it does, how we calculate Gini coefficient, we basically first calculate the Lorenz curve. The Lorenz curve is basically where we put the cumulative share of income which is earned by the complete economy and the cumulative share of people from the lower income. On the basis of that, we basically get this Lorenz curve. This Gini coefficient is basically the kind of the derivation. So let's say for example, if it stands at 25%, it shows that there is less economic inequality which is prevailing in our country. However, this World Bank's poverty and equity brief has been criticized by various economists as highlighted in today's explained article. It says that in India, we do not calculate inequality in the terms of income which is being earned by the people divided by the total number of people. Rather, we actually calculate it on the basis of Tendulkar committee, where it basically calculated on the basis of consumption based inequality. If we refer to the consumption-based Gini index, it was 28.8 in 2011 and it reduced down to 25.5 in 2022. If we will start calculating it on the basis of income inequality, that was 52 in 2004 and that has actually increased. Why? It is shown with the various data. For example, here we have taken the World Inequality Lab report of 2024. Which basically showcases that if we look at the pre-tax national income for the top 10%, that stand at 57%. The 50% of the bottom population is actually only earning 15% of the total national income. Again, the median earning of the top 10% is actually 13 times higher than the bottom 10%. So there is a huge level of inequality which prevails, for which the government has actually taken a lot of such initiatives. It is trying to basically kind of incentivize the companies to create employment under employment linked incentive scheme. It is trying to skill the workforce under Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. Even under the education system of college and schools, vocational training is being provided. Then the government is making sure that the three basic capitals, education, food, health, all of that is being taken care of. So for example, in food security, the government is providing subsidized ration under National Food Security Act 2013. For health, the government has come up with Ayushman Bharat Yojana, right? Insurance cover of 5 lakh rupees per family per year. All of this, whenever the question will come on income inequality, remember that there is a specific directive under Article 39 of the Constitution which actually direct the state to reduce down such prevailing economic inequality. So remember all of these facts. We move forward to the last news of the day, where we are going to learn about the National Achievement Survey which has been in the news. Why? So when the National Achievement Survey was released on July 2nd, few actually expected that the Himachal Pradesh, which was actually ranked 21st in 2021. So basically this report is released every 3 years, right? By which organization? Ministry of Education. So in 2021, Himachal Pradesh was at 21st place. It jumped 16 ranks to actually feature in the top 5. The top 2 positions were held by Punjab and Kerala. What is this National Achievement Survey? It is basically a nationwide assessment being conducted every 3 years by Ministry of Education to measure the learning outcome of the students in government and government-aided schools, where we take such assessment specifically for 4 classes, 3rd class, 5th class, 8th class and 10th class. And the students of these classes are basically tested on the command on the core subjects like language, mathematics and science. And this data actually helps in data-based policy making. What were the efforts which were done by Himachal Pradesh? So first of all, they provided impetus on increasing the fertility rate, which was declining. Adequate recruitment of teachers were done by discarding the contractual system altogether. 1,000 enrolled schools were actually merged for the better deployment of teachers and infrastructure. A single directorate system was created from pre-primary to class 12th. And there was also the provision for school level decision making. Then kind of international exposure was provided to teachers as well as some meritorious students. You guys would have also gone if you were studying. I hope you are. But does this NAS reflect these efforts? The answer is not entirely. Why? Because this NAS gives us an important signal that Himachal is back on track, but tells us little about the socio-emotional well-being of students, the quality of teacher-learning relationship, or the community engagement. Thus, we should not take this ranking as a kind of a performance in standardized test for education itself. However, you guys can quote this in your GS2 answer in the education sector. And with this, we have reached to the end of our discussion today. Do not forget to attempt the questions at the end of the video and test your knowledge. We will meet in a very interesting discussion very soon. Till then, all the very best for your preparation and thank you.